I've had insomnia for as long as I can remember. I've always had trouble sleeping, and I'm envious of people who can just lay down and crash. Recently, I've been in a bit of a sleeping slump. I'll go lay down at about 2 a.m. and won't sleep until 6 a.m. How's that fair? Why does this happen? And guys, I've tried it all. Sleeping pills, muscle relaxers, my friends have even suggested some of that dank kush, which I guess you have to say it like that or else you're not cool. Either way, nothing works, but it does give me a lot of time to think. As childish as may sound, the thoughts that I generate through the night typically have to do with superpowers. And again, I know it seems silly, but I'll bet I'm not alone on this. Or I sure hope I'm not. I end up thinking about this all through the night, and more often than not, it puts me into a sleep state that tends to reward me with very interesting dreams. And typically not even about superpowers either. It just seems the more outlandish my thoughts before bed are, the more interesting my dreams become, even if they have nothing to do with the thoughts I conjured. But I'm not making this video to help you guys sleep or give you tips on how to improve your boring dreams. Through my insomnia, these daydreams grant me with many strange questions that I end up asking my friends, and I want to ask you guys as well. But before I can ask the questions, I need to give context to them, so let's start with the first one. So normally I like to give myself one power and then fabricate myself a problem, so I have to think of a way out of the situation. And as fun as that can be, there's also nothing like the idea of making yourself a bit overpowered. More often than not, I'll have a scenario where I'll give myself super strength and have someone break into my house. I'm not sure what the appeal is to me beating the crap out of someone, but it just feels so justified when they're in the wrong. They'll bust down the door, baseball bat in hand, calling out for anyone in the house to come out. Cue me walking down the stairs all slow like some anime supervillain, opening with some cringy crap like, "You don't know it yet, but you've made a huge mistake." And don't blame me for that, it's like 5 in the morning when I have these thoughts, okay? I'm tired. But then I just grab them and throw them through the front door. It's funny because even though I know it's just a fantasy, I always regret breaking stuff because I feel like I'll have to replace it later. In these daydreams though, I never put myself in a villain situation, even if I'm using powers that come from bad guys in movies. I always set it up so that I'm saving the day, and I often wonder if that's even scarier. Why do I feel the need to be the good guy? It's just a fantasy, right? But just because I'm the good guy, it doesn't mean that I'm always doing the right thing. Sometimes I'll give myself powers of the Flash, if not only because we share the same name, but also because his powers are just cool. Being able to run at lightning speed without killing anyone he runs by, that should actually kill people. But I also wouldn't handle things the way that most superheroes do. When it comes to resolving crime, I end up making myself judge, jury, and executioner. For example, if someone's about to rape or murder someone, I always run up and snatch the culprit, take them all the way to the coast, which takes like 10 seconds, and then throw them into the ocean with no explanation. In my mind, it's simple. If they survive and swim back, then they're free to go. If they die, well, that sucks for them. Shouldn't have done that. But if they do survive and I catch them trying it again, I'm gonna run faster and throw them a lot harder next time. I feel like my way would just work better than the justice system we have now, but if I did have superpowers and I did something like that, the idea of me being a hero would be a bit more controversial. So my first question is, if you were a superhero, how would you punish criminals? And I'm not talking about people stealing from a store, I'm talking about assault, rape, murder, things like that. Now I mentioned this earlier and it's a bit weird that I do this, but the more tired I am, the more I think up situations where my family's in danger, and typically I don't even give myself superpowers. There'll be a situation where my mother's being attacked and I'm helpless to do anything, or she and my brother die in a house fire or something like that, and it sucks because later down the line I get abilities that would have saved their life. I probably do this because it's the golden cliche for all these superheroes. They go through some traumatizing thing that makes them who they are and all the more relatable to the viewer, but the fact that I do that to my family in these things is a little messed up. Again, I'm just gonna blame the time of night. Another thing I'll do is I'll put myself in past situations that actually happened to me in real life, like a time I got bullied, and what I would have done had I had some sort of superpower. For instance, there was this kid that I rode the bus with. He was always such a jerk to everyone, not exactly a bully, just had no respect for anything, and I hated the guy. He was one of those tough guys, you know? Not even a very strong dude, he would just talk big, and for that, I always wanted to scare him, make him fear something, and not even necessarily me. Like I could go to him one day and say, "Hey, wanna see something really cool?" and then show him how he dies? That would have scarred him for life. Now, I am a little bit sadistic and I can admit that. Typically the only reason I give myself superpowers is to punish people who do wrong, and I sometimes wonder if I do it just because I like the idea of hurting people justifiably, or if I actually want to save people's lives. I almost never talk to the people I save in these daydreams, but then again, neither do superheroes in the movies, so if I'm a bad person, then so are all of them. It's funny how such a childlike idea can make you think so much about yourself, tells you what kind of person you are. It's funny because I'll go into depth sometimes, even down to how I get the power. You'll notice this is a common theme in superhero movies too. The way the character gets the power determines a lot, even down to their name most of the time. I typically think of someone else having the abilities and then passing them on to me, like some dude who's invincible and immortal but sick of living. They just come up to me like, "Hey man, want these superpowers?" Gee, let me think, yeah? They only live long enough to teach me how to use them, and then I live in their debt using the abilities given to hinder petty crime. And sometimes I won't even give myself superpowers, I'll just give myself mediocre ones, like changing my eye color, or not feeling pain, or never having to sleep. Which would ironically put an end to these kinds of thoughts. Other times I'd want powers just to mess with people, even if I could use them to save the day. Like invisibility. I'd mostly use that to mess with people. I'd hide in bathrooms and make scary shuffling noises behind people, and when they look up in the mirror, they'd see nothing and freak out. And no, I wouldn't have the stupid invisibility where I have to be naked. I also like the idea of morphing into anyone else so I could look exactly like them. I'd go to my friends' houses as celebrities and freak them out, or if I get into an argument with someone, I could say crap like, "You know what you look like right now?" and then just show them. So I guess the second question would be, what superpower would you pick? One that's really useful and could help or hurt people, and what mediocre power would you want? One that's useless and couldn't possibly save anybody, but is kinda cool to have. The last few questions don't really need any sort of context, but I sometimes think about what I would ask for if a genie offered me 3 wishes. And I know what everyone else says, wish for more wishes, but that's stupid and not only attaches me forever to some genie that I may or may not even like, but makes him the middleman for something that's easily achievable without him simply by saying, "I wish that I could do anything I could think." There, done. Now if I want to fly, I can fly. If I want strength, I have strength. And this could be really cool, because I could pick what superpowers I wanted for the day and see how that treats me. Now, yes, this wish essentially makes you a god and that all life's questions are answered, but if you're the sort of person who asks a genie for infinite wishes, then you're essentially doing the exact same thing, so I don't even want to hear it. And I'm not going to ask you what you would wish for if a genie granted you wishes, because in the context of superpowers, I've already given the best answer. But say this genie was a bit of a prick and said, "You may have one superpower if you trade a positive personality trait. So let's say you have a great sense of humor. You could trade that for X-ray vision, or something like that." This one was always a tricky one for me, and I seriously have no idea what positive personality trait I want to give up. I end up thinking, well, if I give up my sense of judgment, then how will I know if I'm using my powers responsibly? And if I give up my charm, then how am I going to deliver that iconic superhero punchline? In the end, I copped out and gave up my sense of direction, but don't be me, that's a load of bullcrap and shouldn't count. Now I know what you're thinking, and yeah, okay, maybe I've been watching too many superhero movies lately. But to my defense, everyone's making these superhero movies and shows, and you even have to be an adult to see some of them. Try to tell me you didn't watch these. Yeah, that's what I thought, and if it helps me sleep, then all the better. The more I think about superheroes though, the more I realize how many bad ones there are. I mean, of course you have Aquaman and the Wonder Twins, but even Spider-Man kinda sucks. Newsflash buddy, it's not that impressive these days to be a web designer.